Okay, I'm not sure what kind of format we should have for today's meeting. I think it's just going to be kind of brainstorming, trying to focus in on what we want this committee to start doing. And
I could suggest the round robin format where we go around and we all share some ideas we might have had on this.
I am fine with that if everybody else is.
I'm fine with that. Alex, I don't know about everybody else. When you're speaking, you're fading in and out on my computer, just a little.
Is that any better?
Much.
Great. All right. Commissioner Ratzon, would you want to start the round robin?
Okay. Sure. I haven't done any like particular work in this regard besides having read Alex Vitale's book on the end of policing. And obviously we all attended his talk, I think all of us were there or watched it later on video. And so my main suggestion and approach would be to start with some of his suggestions, one of which to me seems kind of like an overarching principle, which is to keep whatever services or programs that we recommend outside of the purview of the police, rather than suggesting changes and reforms necessarily to the policing system. So obviously that's something we'll need to discuss whether, we're in agreement on. Do we want to focus more on programs? And I would suggest that I honestly, based on his suggestions and his approach, since he studied this for so many years, I would definitely lean towards saying, let's focus on programs that we're going to recommend outside of the police before we spend time trying to reform the current policing system. Because I'm sure there's lots of people already focusing on that, frankly. So that's mainly all I have to contribute at this point.
What would that look like outside of the police reform? I mean, if we're doing it outside of the police, what does that look like?
Well, I mean, I think from what he recommended and from his book that usually, and I think there are some suggestions in the US that we can look for programs that have followed that example. But I think it mainly means creating a new body, a new organization within the city to oversee public safety that is not underneath the police department.
Okay, thank you.
A community public safety entity that does not currently exist, I think, would need to be created. But that may not be the only option, but I think that's what I heard has been done in other places and what he was recommending. In fact, it may be that the police department would also report to this entity, and we may want to discuss that as well. But I think that's an option as far as organizational structure of what he was recommending. And obviously, I think our working group or committee, whatever this is, can definitely consult with Alex, and I'd be happy to contact him with any specific follow-up questions or anything like that.
I can't remember whether the STAR program in Denver is completely separate from the police or operates in conjunction with them, like cooperates with them. That'd be something to revisit. And then there's also the CAHOOTS program in Eugene, Oregon, which I think may also have direct crisis intervention response that doesn't go through the police, is not part of the police department there. Yeah, that sounds like a reasonable idea to me. Commissioner Brian Sparks, did you want to be the next one in Robin.
Um, Commissioner Miller was trying to say something.
It's okay. You go.
I'm sorry.
It's quite all right.
No, I wanted to hear what you had to say, please.
I'm gonna look for something on my computer, so please go ahead.
Okay. I thought one of the programs, I'm not sure if it was in Denver or not, but I thought one of them initially started with the police department and then it bridged into its own program, but I'm not sure. But I know what Alex Vitale was saying was that really what our police department does really is show up when we need somebody to be in force, right? And that's not what we need a lot of times in the situations when they arrive. I know there's somebody that represents an agency that has interaction. The people that go to that agency have interaction with law enforcement. And I talked to them today, and we are going to have a meeting because they have questions and situations that they would like to have discussed with the police department. And so they want to meet with me to discuss that further.
Who is this group or people?
IRA.
The
I don't know
Indiana
what that
Recovery
stands
Alliance?
for.
Yes.
Oh yeah. I know some of them as well. Yeah.
Ditto.
Yeah, it's Nick Voiles is
Right.
the director right now, right?
Yeah.
Is it possible to have him come and talk with all of us?
Oh, I'm sure he'd be willing to do that. Yes.
If we're interested as a group to do that. I would be interested. Anyway.
I wasn't trying to exclude anybody. That's just somebody that I'm close to, and we were discussing it, and then we were gonna have a meeting about it. So
I think he's got good ideas. That's why I'd be interested in hearing what he has to say about it too.
Kamala, if I could just throw in, based on what you mentioned already about how the police tend to mostly be needed to arrest people, that seems like further justification that whatever entity or organization would oversee community public safety, that the police would report to them rather than the other way around, because they're the ones who frankly should, be able to know when the police are needed.
right.
Mm-hmm.
Did anybody get a chance to listen to the annual report that I put up?
Not yet.
I haven't. I started to listen to it, but I had to deal with other issues.
There is from about actually, I need to listen to the first 30 minutes, but I listened to the last 30 minutes, which encompassed the Bloomington police chief and Beverly Calendar Anderson and her report. And I found both of them interesting, chocked full of information, that would be helpful for us to draw on for questions, and also for maybe the direction we would like to head in, unless we go the route that Commissioner Routsong suggests, that we just go a whole different way, completely, and we may choose to, and Chris Richardson with the STAR program did start with within the police department, and what the Denver police did find out was that they were not needed. And I think what we're finding in Bloomington, at least based upon the annual report that I heard yesterday, was it almost sounded like Bloomington police know that sometimes they're not needed either. So it's not that they might not be amicable to that idea. I think they just don't want to lose it, some of it being embedded in the police department. So there's where we're going to have that struggle to maybe convince them that they don't need to be embedded per se. It could be, you know, work with us. This is a group and this is a group, and we work together, and not we're all this group, if that makes sense. Anyway, and Chris did say that he would help us in any way possible to set that up, if that is the way we choose to write a report and a recommendation. I'm not opposed either to the idea Commissioner Routsong has with having a completely new umbrella. And I don't know if it's under the fire department, because fire has some issues of their own. I know, I was a firefighter. But maybe it is fire first. Maybe fire does it all, or dispatch and then fire. I'm not really sure what the organizational chart will look like, but I'm not opposed to having it different. And it might actually be better to have it different. Because we know already that people don't want the police to roll up, or we don't want to have to, we can call 911 and it doesn't have to be us calling the police. It can be 911, I want this service, or I need this service. Or 211, well, it wouldn't be 211, but you get it. You get what I'm saying. A number. And then have dispatch send who's needed. And right now they are doing that locally. They are sending who's needed. Sometimes they're sending people that aren't needed, though, and that's very strange. I know some people that have had that interaction, and it's like, why are you here? So, anyway, I don't want to keep running around in circles. I'm not getting anywhere that way. So, but that's my opinions. I like Chris Richardson's offer. I'm open to looking at other ideas too. But I do think we have to pick one and start diving into it. What about you, Alex?
Yeah, I do see an umbrella organization that's not the police as an ultimate goal. It's, a public safety dispatch system that decides which crisis intervention group to send to which call. And I think most of those would not be the police. Mental health calls would have specialists dispatched. And can you hear me at all?
In and out. Wah,
all right. Yeah, like issues with houseless folks wouldn't necessarily have the police dispatched to them. Mental health calls, drug-related calls. I'm sure that's where people like Nick and the IRA have a real interest in seeing their community members not afraid to call for help when they need it, because they don't want the police to come, but to know that the police won't be dispatched for a standard, drug overdose or drug problem call. Yeah, I think that's the ultimate goal. And I honestly don't know what the first step would be, because that is an overhaul of the entire system. And that would take the cooperation of, every level of government and the administration. But, that can be our recommendation too. that we could be bold and say, look, this is ultimately what we want to see happen. It just seems to me from everything we've heard from people like Alex Vitale and Chris from the STAR program that makes the most sense, you know. Yeah, I don't have any bright ideas about how to incrementally suggest things or how to phrase things or how to not get people up in arms, you know, about, oh, we're trying to dismantle the police department, or defund, or, you know, deprioritize.
We're not. I don't think we're defunding it or deprioritizing
right.
it. I think we're modernizing it. That's how I feel, that we're modernizing it. When my dad was a police officer, there was a time that the police department wasn't on the computers. They didn't know how to use the computers. And my dad went to school and he learned how to use the computers, and he put the police department on a computer system. So they became more modernized because the times had changed and got more advanced, and the police department needed to change with the times so that they could help deal with the modern issues that were occurring. And that's what they need to do now. There are more modern issues that are occurring, and they need to adjust and make arrangements and accommodations for the modern times. I mean, they've had to do that all the time because originally they started out to just catch slaves.
Absolutely. So, I think that's a great way to look at it. And I think that's a great way to pitch it too.
Yeah, I also agree that especially the advent of the internet and the ubiquitousness of cell phones giving people access to the internet has allowed for a lot of changes in a lot of different kinds of organizational structures, including government, business, obviously, but any kind of organizational structure has a lot more possibility for higher levels of participation and direct participation by people. And I agree that the police departments and our public safety solutions should be modernized to take advantage of that. I was also thinking, based on what you guys all said, that obviously I came right out with like a kind of bold position here on this subject. Obviously I think we should consider all the alternatives, including being embedded in the police or having an external organization, or as Alex mentioned, some kind of transition where we might suggest maybe we should start it embedded, and then eventually the goal is to have it be its own. And I think I thought of like 3 different aspects that we should probably research and consider in this decision. And one is the funding incentives, because we should think about how the fact that right now how public safety is embedded within the police, it creates motivation and incentives for a certain type of public safety that is dominated by police and specifically by force. And I think that what we eventually decide on the organizational structure, we should consider what is the incentive, what is the funding incentive going to be, what are the effects of this going to be for our community, based on that. Like, let's not ignore that. Obviously, police departments have incentives to, unfortunately, militarize, buy expensive toys, and then they've got incentive to bigger reasons to use them so that they can justify having them and get more money. And I think that's one thing important for us to try to not attack, but consider. And then a second thing I thought of is, we don't want to lose any of the expertise that we have already in our public safety community on these issues by taking it externally. So, to your point, Commissioner Miller, like, we have people in our current police system, like we have Melissa Stone and other like social workers who have a lot of knowledge in this programmatic expertise in these areas. And we don't necessarily want to lose that in whatever we do, or exclude them in any way. So we don't want to lose that. And then the third thing I think to keep in, but then again, I don't think necessarily that just because of that, we need to keep it internal to the police. Just because they're the ones who currently have the knowledge doesn't mean they're the ones who have to have it forever. And then finally, I think the last major consideration, I think, is going to be the political buy-in and collaboration of the police department. I think that's what some of you were alluding to as well. And again, I think we should try to come at this from as inclusive a level as possible, and definitely not at one where, it's seeing like us versus the police department or anything like that. I think, we should definitely try to get as much political buy-in as possible on this. But I think it's also for us to early, before we start to do that, for us to decide what are important to us. Where are our red lines in the sand? Where are we not going to budge, And so before sort of negotiating with another party, usually that's what you want to decide, And I feel like when it comes to getting buy-in from the police and collaboration with them on this, that we're going to have to make some of those. Obviously, we don't have to decide everything ahead of time, but I think it might be helpful for us to decide some of them ahead of time where we feel very strongly we wouldn't budge. But obviously, I think we need to get as much collaboration and political buy-in as possible from the police and try to come at this in a mutually inclusive way. But for example, I just thought, but for example, I'm just trying to be specific. What I mean is, like, I think, for example, we should come at this with open eyes, knowing some people in the police department aren't going to like anything we recommend if it threatens the police budget. Okay. If it threatens to reduce that police budget by $1, some people are just not going to support what we do. And we need to we need to accept that and be ready for some of that opposition. And yeah, just sort of, I guess, decide what opposition, we are ready and prepared to just say, okay, well, we're not going to agree on this,
Commissioner Miller, you had something to say?
I have a lot to say, but I didn't mean to interrupt. So anyway, I think the local police department is trying to modernize. I've been watching a lot. My hard line is probably trying to, if you all have time to listen to that report, I think you're going to learn a lot from it.
I definitely plan to listen to it. I just haven't had time.
Okay, thank you. Because you will hear the word embedded. And to me, that's my hard line. I am all for social workers being called when, let's just call it 911 for now, because that's what we have. I call 911 and I have a crisis with a friend. And the 911 operator says, oh boy, that's the job for a social worker. So they send a social worker. But that social worker does not need to be embedded with the police. And the very words are powerful. When we use the word embedded with the police department, it's an immediate negative connotation. It's not a positive connotation, and it's not going to be. It's just not going to be, because there's so many people that have negative experiences with the police. And that's why we're sitting here having the dialogue. And at least that's what I think we're doing. So that's kind of one of my hard lines. We need the social workers, but I don't think they need to be embedded in the police department. I do want to give kudos to our local police department, though, for the amount of work they are doing to try to come into the modern way of doing things by, trying to use them. But I hope that they can let go of a little of that and let other people take on those things. Yeah. So I did have a question, because I missed one of you said three, this is a question for you, Commissioner Routzong. Three things, areas of topics, and it was defunding incentives, and then political buy-ins. What was your second?
The second one was that we don't want to, I don't think we should exclude or alienate any of the people in this community who have currently the resources to do this kind of alternative policing programs, many of whom are currently embedded within the police department. And I also agree with what you said about embedding. Words are powerful, not just the words of being embedded, but when they are embedded, they literally work for the police department. Exactly. And their colleagues are all police officers, and they may be more likely to trust the police and call the police than if they weren't embedded with the police department.
So what is a good, okay, so I think for myself, I just needed to hear that again, the number two. Yeah,
so I want to keep the three things. That. Yeah, it was funding, incentives, expertise, and buy-in.
Right. We definitely don't want to lose that expertise, because that they are helping, but they also have a long ways to go with learning. There's a learning curve, pretty big learning curve in some cases, but in other cases, they're doing great work. I know, because I see it. But anyway, so how are we going to break up the work? How do we want to look at this? Can we meet more than once a month? Because we have a annual report that's going to be coming due, which means we need a recommendation. So we need some stuff on some good ideas to put out there, probably May, because we're looking at, and don't quote me, anyone who's listening, cats, but I think there's a break. So it'd be great if we could have that done prior to the break. And I think the break is in May. And we have an annual report that's coming due. So anyway, and we'll be talking about that a little bit in our next annual meeting. Regular session.
I was like, what?
Yes, sorry. About the report. So anyway, so that was a run-on sentence, a long one. How do we want to break up the work to look? I think it's a good idea to look at those three areas, and also, I heard, was it Vitale say that he really doesn't. He can't really give us any ideas for locally how to go about starting. So I think he wanted us to look at local people and or people that were willing to work locally with us. And we did have an offer with Richardson to do that. So anyway.
Yeah, Commissioner Ratzong has a hand up.
Oh, yeah.
I was just going to add to Commissioner Miller's point. I think also we did ask, I think I asked him what he recommends, specifically for our political situation or a political situation, hypothetically, where you don't expect a lot of necessarily support from local administration. And one specific suggestion Alex Vitale had when I asked that was to possibly organize a town hall on the subject where you can gain more political buy-in from the community that could help, if needed. But I don't know if that would be needed. I frankly think maybe if we do it right, we can work with the city on this and not, not necessarily have to be that way, but maybe it's a good idea to have a town hall, in coordination with the city, basically to make sure that we are involving all the right people's opinions on anything that we do, and, you know, making a real decision on behalf of the community. It just may be one suggestion to eventually have an event, one public event at least, on, you know, where we expressly facilitate and, you know, really try to get as much community input. Is just one suggestion for that.
Does everybody here know that there is a group that's working on future of policing in Bloomington, Indiana? Council member Sims is on that group. A friend of mine, Amy McKees, is in that group. Are you all familiar with that, what they're working on, and they have been working on, and they've been meeting weekly, working on the future of policing in Bloomington?
No.
Okay, so they're actually doing similar work to, similar but probably different than what we're talking about. So I'm amazed that they're working as hard as I'm not amazed that they're working as hard as they are. I know these people. But they're meeting every week to kick out a heck of recommendations. So I think we've got our work cut out for us to do the same.
Is this a city? What is this, a city organization or is it a private?
It's city
organization.
It's city. It's in the annual report. It was mentioned by Beverly Calendar Anderson's segment. I think that segment started. Look.
So it's basically like a task force the mayor's put together on the issue.
Sort of, kind of.
Mm-hmm. He did the same thing with affordable housing, interestingly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a thing. It's definitely a thing.
Seems to be.
It does seem to be. And the thing is that means the public can't go to the meetings. They can't participate, and that is to me problematic. Because I think we should be able to participate. I think it's important to be able to participate. I would have liked to have been going to those meetings myself.
Yeah, I would just add, I don't know anything about this new group, but from my experience with the housing issue, I found that the recommendations of the task force were decidedly much more conservative, I would say, than I think a private group of citizens would recommend if we were allowed to speak on the issue. And so I echo your concerns, Commissioner Miller, over this.
Yeah. So it's minute. It's 57 minutes in on the annual report, the police and safety report, and it's 30 minutes in for Chief Dekoff. And then it is minute 40 and 20 seconds that Chief Dekoff says over and over and over again about to have a conversation with him and talk with him, or to actually above him, that we can change that dialogue. It might just be helpful. It might be simpler than we are making it out to be. We'll see. We'll see. So back to, in my head, I need organization. So how are we going to break this out into work groups? What are we going to have as expectations coming back for our next meeting? That's the way my head works. And please help me if you have other ideas, because I think we need to have some organizational stuff going on.
I'm also looking into incidents of discrimination or racial incidents in law enforcement that have taken place in the history of Bloomington. That's also the reparations and atonement. So
Awesome. There is a site on the Bloomington site that covers hate crimes, and I see it's hurting a great deal. There's very little there. Eh, Most of the hate crimes aren't reported or even uploaded, and that's troubling. But I guess that's going to be another topic too. Um, it's it's just crazy how much is missing.
Maybe before our next meeting, we should decide on first on how often we're going to meet, and then that will inform what we want to achieve before the next meeting.
How does everyone feel about every other week? So it would be twice a month.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Maybe not during vacation month, but it sounds good now. Which is at the beginning of fishing season, okay? Just to be clear.
I think we could always cancel as needed any of our meetings.
Sure. Yeah, so that would mean our next meeting will be 2 weeks from today.
Oh, I better look at a calendar for that. What date is that, Commissioner Mann?
The 24th.
Your voice has changed. Thank you, Commissioner Routzon. 24th. I'm free. What about everybody else?
I could make that.
Yeah, I'm available.
Same time. What about you, Commissioner Brown Sparks?
1 second.
So we're going to repeat it every 2 weeks on Thursday at 5.
Oh, we're going to try.
Oh, crud.
Okay, it's on my calendar.
I am on the patient and family advisory for IU.
Does it meet on the 24th?
I need to check because they haven't started their dates really back with the new move and everything, so it's not really consistent yet.
Do you get a say in that?
Not really. I might when they come closer, but
You can't say, hey, I've got another commission meeting.
I can probably when they do it, but they haven't done that yet. So, and I was on that before I was on this.
Okay.
No, I'm just saying, like, they haven't done that yet.
So
You see, you can't commit.
Can we tentatively set it for the 24th?
Yeah. And it's like once every two, like it was once every 2 months. I don't know what they're gonna, like when they started to open the new hospital, then they were having them like almost weekly, but I don't know what they're going to do. Like then they slowed down, and then so I don't know is what I'm saying.
That makes sense. And like Commissioner Routsong said, we can adjust if we need to. So if we are tentatively saying this and we need to change it, we just will.
I had a question. I'm not sure if I'm remembering correctly, but I think it was Alex Vitale who mentioned someone here at IU who might be a good resource to help us get this whole thing started, to just get ideas about who to approach first and how. And their name was Nicole something.
Yeah, and sadly, she's not. That person was reached out to, and they're not available.
Okay.
They're not doing it anymore. So that's sad.
Right.
Yeah, we reached out right away to McCall just to have the dialogue. And
right.
sadly, no, because she would have
She
been.
doesn't do work in that area anymore.
Right. She's not doing work in that area right now.
Mm.
And she didn't have any suggestions or
She did
anything
not.
like that.
She did not. I'm pouting.
We may want to watch that video again by Alex Vital, the one, I'll try to find it and share the link with you guys from MCAT, the video of Alex's visit, since it seems like a long time ago. It's been at least 6 months, maybe more. I know it's not fresh in my memory. I'll probably give it a second watch. I'll try to send the link out to you guys when I find it.
There's another really good one with him. But I would recommend also I've already said it, I won't repeat it.
Oh, like a YouTube video?
Yeah, there's a YouTube video that's really good. But
would you share that if you
I don't
mind?
know where it is. I just Googled and found it.
Okay.
I'm diving into that report that I heard yesterday because it is thick with information and it's going to help us to work with the people that are already here. And I think that's really going to be important to work with and not against. Because what makes us stronger is working together. So
maybe our first task, since we're meeting in just 2 weeks, is to watch all these videos, because it sounds like this address is long. If we go back and watch Alex Vitale's visit, that would be kind of long. And you know, obviously we don't want to just do this every time, but maybe at first it's worth it for us to just spend some time, you know, go back and rewatch the videos or reread, and then come back in 2 weeks and share what we think our next steps should be. Just a suggestion, because it seems like a lot for us to all watch and respond to. That may be a big enough ask, is what I'm thinking. As a
sounds reasonable to me.
Current and former professor who has some understanding of normal people's workloads.
I'm ready to dive in and do something. So I'm already going to be diving into trying to figure some stuff out. I don't know what it's going to look like. That's why I need direction, a group direction, because I want to hit the ground and I want to go.
We could have more, maybe if you want to suggest any specific areas you think we should dive into.
Yeah.
Or think about maybe.
Yeah, hang on a second. I have notes in so many different places. I think I have to find a couple things that I've got hidden on my computer. It's not hidden, but I've got them put away. But I guess that probably is a good idea. It sounded like Commissioner Mann was interested in doing that. I think we're going to have to do that because we need to figure out the focus group areas. So, and we just need to pick like 3 and really dig deep into those 3. Or I think if we make it too broad, it'll be too broad and we'll get lost. I think that's been part of what has been of issue at times. We get too broad and we have all these grandiose ideas and they're all great, but we can't do it all in 1 year. You know, we have to choose what we're going to work on and then work on it. I know, because I still want to go back and work on some other stuff. So.
Well, you know, rewatching those things or watching them for the first time would be where I'd want to start anyway. You know? And I think if we all do that along the same timeline over the next 2 weeks and take notes and bring back like some major points that each of us took from those, and we'll probably find some overlap that might start informing a direction for us.
Maybe in our next meeting in 2 weeks, we can try to have a general timeline for the next year. perhaps?
Next year, I'm sorry, could you explain that? Because we don't have a year anymore. This February, March, April, May.
Okay, yeah, I mean, maybe we can just have a timeline for that just until May then.
Okay.
I mean, that maybe we could make that our goal, is for all of us to think about that, what we might think the next step should be until May to get that report or recommendation for the report, if that's our main deliverable. I think that is a deliverable for our group, but not the only one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Can we do some breakout right now? Could we spend a few minutes on breakout ideas also before we also decide to rewatch that stuff? Because I have a couple ideas that I already know the city's going to want to know about. They're going to want to know cost, because cost is everything. So that's just not a fun breakout group, but it's got to be a breakout group. It's got to be a focus group, because costs, boom. I'm not all excited about looking at cost, but the START program started within the police department. They decided they didn't need it to be under the umbrella of the police department. So it's now their budget comes from the mayor's, the city itself, and they just got a budget of 1.2 million. So how much is the social worker program costing the city through the police department? I don't know, but probably a lot. And they just added, I think, 3 more positions. And so if those positions were possibly taken under a new umbrella, how much would that cost? That kind of thing. So I'm not good with trying to figure out fiscal stuff. Anybody here any good at it?
Ask.
Well, I'm sorry.
I know people I could ask who may have a little more experience with that kind of thing.
Yeah, we're gonna have to reach out and get help from our friends, aren't we? And
well, I feel like still we should think about it like structurally, like, because I feel like each of the structural options, like having a separate one or embedding it, or doing a transition, has different cost implications. And so calculating the cost is going to depend on which structure we recommend. But as you know, is a good point, we may want to have a rough idea of the differences of that before making a decision on what structure we recommend. So maybe our plan should be to basically spend some time in detail researching all of 3 of these options before making any sort of, real decision on it. And, and looking into the, at least some detail to what the cost range. I think we don't need to do any detailed fiscal calculations at this point. Right. We just want to know a range and what are the important, the important implications that would make a big difference in the budget. Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely true. What I was getting at was one of the breakout groups eventually will need to be cost of whatever our idea is. That's all I was getting at. Not trying to take us far off the beaten path of the conversation now. I was just saying, what are some of the topics that since we already kind of know we're going to watch videos and come back at our next meeting in 2 weeks, what are some other categories we absolutely know the city is going to want to need from us and want to see from us? That's why I brought that up. Not to go go away from those ideas, because I liked it, and I think everybody agreed to it, that that's a good idea to watch the videos and come back. So maybe people aren't ready to be thinking about some of the categories that we are going to have to be looking at to present a solid foundational idea to the city. One is cost. Later, we got to do it, because that's I heard somebody else give an idea, and they said, well, no, we don't know how much it's going to cost. It was a 9.5-hour painful meeting because cost was missing.
Yeah, I feel like cost is an important part of any policy recommendation.
Yeah.
And so I certainly would want to have us very thoroughly investigate that aspect before making any recommendation on any matter at all, any kind of policy.
And thanks to Commissioner Mann said he might know some people that he can get some info from, which is awesome. What other categories besides cost are we going to have to? We're going to need to know our preliminary approach, and I thought 3 were really super good. Thank you, Commissioner Roudsong, for those because they are good.
We're going to need to know what it improves in the community, like if it makes community happiness go up or not, if satisfaction would improve from the situation.
And I think we should consider racial justice implications.
Right.
How do we word that for a category?
Racial justice is what I would recommend.
Okay, so racial justice, but I also heard something else. Commissioner Brown Sparks, you said something else in it, and then Commissioner Roudsong, you put racial justice. There was.
I was like community satisfaction. I don't know.
So,
like,
I would add community health outcomes because we have data on that I've shared in that research committee already, but we've got really detailed county health data.
You're taking notes, right, Kamala, on these things that are being thrown out?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Racial justice is clearly going to be a little bit harder to measure than county health, but it's something for us to consider anyway.
I think those are good categories. What others?
Well, I think related to cost, we should also focus on what a new system will save in the long run. If police are not incarcerating as many people because not as many crises are treated as criminal cases, how much are we saving the city and our community in the long run by not incarcerating all those people, by not having police show up to each and every call? Just an idea that if we can spin it that way, you know, that's the flip side of, yes, new things cost money, but the flip side is that hopefully they'll save more money in the long run.
That is,
thanks for go ahead, Renee. Go ahead, Commissioner Miller.
That is so important what you just said, and it's a good segue to why aren't we seeing that police budget go down and we're seeing it go up? Because crime, which you'll find out in the annual report, went down 9% last year, but we didn't save 9%. Now, are we saying it's because we now have social workers embedded in the police department? And if so, let's take that and put it somewhere else. And I'm sorry, you're just going to take away from that budget and put it where it's needed, somewhere else. And I'm not sorry, but you get the picture. Yeah, the charts are pretty intensively telling. So if it went down that much, the only category that went up was the reported sexual assaults and rape. So that could be good and bad. It's bad, but because we already know 2 out of 3 rapes aren't reported. So, and that's the one category that went up. All the other categories in Bloomington went down. So that says that's good. But why are we spending so much then? And continuing to spend more and more and more. We could save the city some money, and then the city could use it for some really cool projects that like some other things that are necessities, like I don't know.
Maybe some housing first
I like the
initiatives.
environment, but I can't find my words right now because I need more coffee. Sorry. Go ahead, Commissioner Mann.
I was just going to say something like housing first initiatives.
Yes.
You know, I'd rather see budget dollars go there than to the police department.
And sustainability, that was my word.
Just to add to what you were just saying, both of you, I'm seeing as separate decisions for our committee to make is recommendations on police budget, recommendations on budget for other entities, and then recommendations on organizational structure. I see those as like three separate areas of decisions that we should be possibly considering. And I wanted to add, Commissioner Mann, to what you were saying, is from what I understood from reading The End of Policing and from Alex's visit to us, all of this work usually will end up saving money in the long run, period. And so, hopefully as far as cost, we definitely should be able to make that case that we're actually not asking for money for anything. We're, providing a way to save money. And I think that's not even a way to spin it. I used to work in marketing. I know pretty well what spin is, and that's just how it is. I mean, numbers go in black and white, they go in the red or the black. And at the end of the day, I think we're going to be saving money. We're literally going to be, making money for the city, basically, with our recommendations.
I got recommendations for police budget on other agencies, and I missed the other one.
Oh, recommendations on the police. Sorry. Yeah, recommendations on the police budget, recommendations for other entities' budget. So by other entities, I meant to include possibly suggesting it should go to a currently existing entity like the fire department, or suggesting a budget for a new entity that we may suggest should be created. And then recommendations on organizational structure was the third.
Bold. Can we call it bold for the sake of conversation? We'll figure out what the acronym stands for later. We've got STAR, we have CAHOOTS, we have, anyway.
That's our task for the next 2 weeks, is we each have to think of what the acronym BOLD stands for.
Why are we calling it BOLD? Just because that's a cool name? I mean, I'm okay with that.
I have no idea. It just came up because, I mean, here we are. We're just a bunch of, we are just a bunch of people with lived experience that didn't make the cut to be on the other committee with the lived experience, right? So maybe we can just bring up some bold ideas. And bold is a van rolling up to help somebody instead of the police. And instead of shooting up in the grass at Seminary Square, they hop in the van and they have a safe place to do that. And then after they're done with that, they can then be helped by the person further by saying, here's some services, here's my card, here's my telephone number, call us, we're here for you. Those are my overarching ideas.
Yeah, mobile safe injection sites are absolutely something that like the Indiana Recovery Alliance would be into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got to have something because people are injecting all over the place, and that's what I hear from the public a lot. Hear from the public a lot. I see a lot of on social media, a lot of disparaging comments about people, and we can help those people. And we can help both segments of those people. We can help the people that are seeing it, and we can help the people that are doing it. And we can help the people that are doing it by having outreach attached to that, like the IRA. So, yeah, bold came out.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to your bold manifesto, if you will, or philosophical statement as it seemed to be there. I like that as an acronym. And I also like it because it really is sort of philosophical, in my opinion, because the whole philosophy that I feel like I'm personally opposing through our work here is the command and control philosophy that our policing system is based on. As Alex Vitale explains in his book, the whole system is created out of a philosophy of command and control. And I feel like that the word bold, really does summarize a new vision. To me, what would be an opposition of a command and control technique for public safety would be a bold approach, because in my opinion, command and control is not a very bold approach.
No, it's not.
To public safety.
Thank you. All it did was be created to keep slavery wheels going, as Commissioner Brown Sparks reminds us, thank goodness. So, yeah.
Thanks for the work you're doing, Commissioner Brown Sparks, in researching the compiling and the facts around racial injustice in our community as it pertains to law enforcement. I believe that will be very useful to our work in this committee as well. So thank you for doing that.
Some of it's personal.
That's the case for most of us on this commission. I think we've got some things that are personal for us.
But I just want to make Bloomington the best place that I can make it. I guess that's part of a family tradition.
I want to help that.
What's that?
I was just saying I'd like to help that as much as I can.
Yeah. Me too.
Thank you, commissioners.
Do we feel like we have enough to do individually and as a committee over the next 2 weeks to our next meeting?
I do.
Yeah.
Well, do we have a definitive chart of what we're doing besides watching the videos and
watching the videos and kind of, I think, focusing on the in the big picture, the three options, focusing on either, what we would suggest for some cooperation with the police department, or what we would suggest as far as some kind of transition, and then what we would suggest is an umbrella that is completely separate from the police department. I don't think I'm describing the three of those that well, but
that's really good. Can anybody put that in outline form for me?
Can I just suggest an alternative?
Could anybody put that in an outline form, whatever it is that we're going to be doing this next 2 weeks, and get it to this group in the next 48 hours?
I can try.
Sorry, I was just going to suggest a slight revision or alternative to that structure.
Yes, what is it?
Yeah.
Oh, I think that was like those categories I was seeing at first, but I'm thinking now we really should just focus on 3 decision areas, which are recommendations on budget, specific, well, that's 2, police budget, other entities budget, and recommendations on organizational structure. I feel like those are the three decisions we're going to need to make kind of before making any of the other ones. At least a range. We're going to need to know a range of budget, you know, before we make any other decision about programming. That's how I feel anyway, as well as the organizational structure.
When you say range of budget, could you expand on that? Because that, to me, I hear dollar amount, which you can't go there yet, because we don't know what we're doing. We don't know the program yet. So when you say range, what does that mean?
I mean, that's a good question. I feel I'm not sure. I feel like eventually that's one of the decisions that we're going to have to make on this committee, I guess. So maybe you're right. We don't need to make that one first. But at the same time, like I was saying, I think before we can make a definitive decision on the organizational structure we want to recommend, we do need to know what the cost implications are.
Okay.
Of that.
Okay.
So yeah, maybe that's going back to the other categories that Alex just said, which are organizational structure, cost implications. Sorry if I confused the issue.
No, it's okay. That's why I think it would be helpful to have just a really simple outline.
We're going back to I was like, wait a minute.
It's not working.
I thought we were going back to learning incentives, expertise, and buy-in. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I did. Yeah. I don't know. I feel like these are just all things we should probably be considering before our next meeting. I don't know if we need to make any more. Do we need to make any more specific decisions on these topics? Commissioner Miller, what do you think?
Maybe if Commissioner Brown Sparks is able to kind of share the minutes, and we can see those 3 points that kind of come up again and again that we've discussed today.
Okay, I need to write them out differently because the way that I write, the way that I think. So I don't, like I wrote Alex open discussion with what technique to use, and Nejla suggested round robin. We all agreed, and then I said Nejla, so Alex Vitale, and then I was like, there was a lot of discussion, and because we asked like which technique we should use, and we all decided on the round robin, and then I said that we need to consider funding incentives. We need to try to keep the expertise that we have locally still involved, and we need to it's important to consider the political buy-in when we're doing that. And those were the first 3 things that were like really important. Those were the first 3 bullet points. And then we were talking about how to break up work. And so that was when we were like, after we did that, it was like we were supposed to watch the report, and then we were supposed to determine the cost of programs and like what would it save, and then like we would do that eventually, and then said we need to study racial justice, overall health, community satisfaction. Those were the things that were important, and then we needed to take into the overall look that the crime rate went down, but our budget, instead of going down, it increased. And so that we need to figure out, well, why did that do that? And so then we'll also need to make recommendations on police budgets and on other entities.
And I'm not really sure, excuse me, I'm not really sure 100% that the budget went up. It might have gone down a little now that I'm thinking about it. It may very well have been. So I need to retract that.
The police budget went up. I remember that. The police budget went up.
Did it?
Yeah. I mean, I just need that from...
Down. I thought it went down a little bit. I thought I was in that meeting, but but I'm not absolutely sure. And you say it did go up. Some other categories did go up. Sorry for interrupting, Kamala. It caught my ear.
Okay. And then I would like the recommendations on police budgets and on other entities and current or new entities, and then on other organizations. And then I put that we need to come up with things for the bold theme that you.
That's more for fun right now. Okay.
That's an important one.
For fun.
That's very important.
I was like, we're gonna work that in there.
I feel
fun homework for giving it a name.
Yeah, but basically that's the notes of the meeting, because that's
Thank you.
Really said.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for taking the note.
And the meeting was called to order at 5:04 p.m.
well, to the question of what should we get done before the next meeting, I feel like what we're trying to get to, maybe Commissioner Miller, and what you're trying to get us to get to is like, what's our strategy? What's our plan? And I feel like maybe we're not ready to make those decisions until we've watched these videos, unfortunately, because this is really big picture, thinking like, how are we going to frame these issues and what is our strategy? And I feel like I personally am not prepared to have that conversation tonight.
That's fair. That's fair. Yeah. I've watched them recent. I've watched a lot of videos recently, but I would like to watch the Alex Vitale video again, and also the other one of his that's on YouTube. So I'll watch those two again, and I'm sure I'll draw even more ideas out.
But I definitely agree. We need to be thinking of what our strategy is and what our next steps are. But maybe I feel like we might be better off trying to make some of those decisions starting next week. I mean, at our next meeting, sorry.
February 24th, unless that doesn't work for Commissioner Brown Sparks. And might I say that we should at least make sure we have 3 people in a meeting of 4 people, because there may be a time where we only have 3 of the 4. There may be a time where one of us can't come. Hopefully we can all 4 come. But what if there is a time where one of us can't come? If my mom falls again, I don't want to throw a monkey wrench in things, but I got to go help her, so there might be one of those times.
You and I will probably be at the hospital on the same day.
But if that's true, then I'd be driving you, so.
Well, last time I showed up with my own transportation.
Well, that's true. That's true.
I think for inclusiveness, we should try to schedule every meeting at a time when all 4 of us are available. And then if some member decides they can't come for a certain reason, I think we should let each member make that decision for themselves.
Yeah, I would be okay with that.
Sorry about my dog. She's protesting that I'm not giving her dinner and walking her, I guess, right now.
I understand. I have a cat.
Mine is in the bedroom, and she doesn't get to be in the bedroom unless I'm in there, so she thinks she's in heaven. Because I know she's on the bed. She is not in her bed. She is on the bed.
Okay.
So anyway. Okay, so
okay.
Can we get a was that a yes? We're gonna have a
meeting on the 24th at this same time.
Yes. And
yes.
Was it a yes or a no to maybe having an outline form of this, or is that just too much to ask?
I am going to try my very best to have it done by later on today.
Awesome.
But yes.
I wasn't even talking the minutes. I was like talking bullet points, outline, whatever, just bullet points of what our assignment is for 2 weeks from now. That's what.
Oh. Well, that's what I just read. It has that in it. So they'll probably make me do the minutes over anyway, but
No, not for committees. Committees are totally different. Becky told us that it just needed to be really simple. You probably took more notes than you needed to today, but for the sake of us, I am very appreciative of it because it's gonna come in handy for us. So are we gonna say how long do we want our meetings to last? Because I'm thinking once we dig in, they could probably last 2 hours, but right now I feel like we're kind of wrapping up.
I feel like an hour and a half is good. I personally have trouble with meetings that go over an hour and a half, especially in the evening. I just tend to get tired.
Oh, I just tune out. I don't find it to be a problem at all. I'm sorry. I was being sarcastic.
I actually have an aide that just showed up. Well, she's been here for a little bit. So because they switched my hours today for some reason. So I actually need to go. So
Okay.
Bye.
So can we adjourn our committee meeting at 6:20? We don't have to make motions. It's a committee.
Yeah,
That's fine with me.
See you
fine with me.
on the 24th, unless we're in another committee together, and I'll see you then.
oh wait, do you want me to try and ask if he can come speak at that meeting or a different meeting?
I think probably at a
The
different
later meeting.
I think we have to have a definitive approach.
Thank you, because I'm like, I don't know that I can that we'll have time to talk before then.
But that's just me. I think we probably need to be more honed in on what we're doing.
Yeah, I'd rather have a strategy and a timeline before we start making invitations to come to our meetings.
All right, because I'm like, oh, I don't think I'm all right. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a really a pinpoint of one of the what do we call it? Focus group, which probably isn't really going to be a focus group. It's going to be one person working on one thing, you know?
It would be one of the assessments of the entity's current or new.
There you go. That works. I can tell now you're just going to start dancing like this.
Steroids are bad for you.
What?
Steroids are bad for you.
Oh, steroids are not that fun. Well, thanks everybody.
Bye,
Yeah,
everyone.
thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you.
See ya.
Bye.
Goodbye.